Welcome back. We are in Act 1 of The Crucible and on page 1136. We now are going to have an exchange between Abigail and Mary Warren. And Mary is going to be an influential part of our play. Let's write her name down really quickly at level 1. Mary Warren is John and Elizabeth Proctor's servant. She's the one who took Abigail's place. And we are now going to have an exchange where Mary Warren will say, we're in some serious trouble here. And then Abigail Williams is going to give a threat. Now let's go ahead and write this down. Then I'm just going to have you actually just listen to this. The threat, of course, that Abigail Williams will give is, if you guys tell anything to anyone about what was going on actually in the woods, I'm going to do something terrible. In the middle of all of this, Betty's going to wake up, and it's going to freak everybody out when she does so. By the way, let's just pause for a moment and go to 1137 and the political drama, world literature, and context box. Do you see it down there? Let's just read this really quickly. Maxim Gorky, notice your dates, 1868 to 1936. Writer Maxim Gorky grew up in Tsarist Russia at a time when millions of Russians lived in poverty. Gorky's parents died when he was young. When Maxim was 10, his grandfather turned him out of the house. Gorky spent his teenage years working at various jobs and tramping across Russia. During this time, he was often homeless and he began writing. The Lower Depths, Gorky's most famous play, is set in a dark basement, and its characters are modeled on the ruthless, poverty-stricken people he met during his homeless years. He wrote it for the Moscow Art Theater, whose director, Konstantin Stanislavski, was developing a new realistic style of theater. When the play was first performed in 1902, it caused a sensation. Such an accurate portrayal of Russia's desperate underworld had never been seen on stage, and it implicitly challenged the political system. The realistic drama that Gorky pioneered gave birth to the style of acting that is used today. This style influenced theater around the world. And then the connect to literature question, why would a realistic portrayal of poverty challenge a political system? Obviously by making somebody accused of it. We'll start now on 1136. Our edited version of the play that we're listening to will pick us up with Abigail making the observation that if they'll be questioning us, tell them that we danced. But that is all. Let's go ahead now and follow the exchange. Here we go.
I told my uncle as much already. Aye, and what more? He knows Tituba conjured Ruth's sisters to come out of the grave. And what more? He saw you naked. Oh, Jesus! If I do, the whole country's talking witchcraft. They'll be calling us witches, Abby. She means to tell him. Abby, we've got to tell. Witches are hanging her. A hanging like they done in Boston 2 years ago. We must tell the truth, Abby. You'll only be whipped for dancing and the other things. Oh, we'll be whipped. I never done none of it, Abby. I only... Oh, you're a great one for looking. Look, you Mary Warren. What a brand. Peeping Gorky. Yeah. Now, Betty, dear, wake up now.
Betty wakes up.
I'll beat you, Betty. My, you seem improving. I talked to your papa and I told him everything, so there's nothing to... Betty. My mama! What ails you, Betty? Your mama's dead in bed. Oh, son, Mama left me!
Bottom of page 1136.
No, Abby. You drank blood, Abby. You didn't tell him that. Betty, you never say that again. You will never. You're the thief. You drank a child to kill John Proctor's friend.
Top of 1137.
Proctor. Now, look, you, all of you, we danced and did you conjured Ruth Putnam's dead sisters, and that is all. And mark this. Let either of you breathe a word or
the threat
word about the other things, and I will come to you in the black of some terrible night, and I will bring a pointy reckoning that will shatter you. You know I can do it. I saw Indians smash my dear parents' heads on the pillow next to mine, and I have seen some reddish work done at night. And I can make you wish you had never seen the sun go down. Now, Betty, sit up and stop this.
Betty collapses.
What's got to Abby? She's gonna die. It's a sin to conjure. I say shut it, Mary Warren, shut it. How's this going home, Mr. Proctor?
Be you foolish, Mary Warren. Be...
All right, so this is significant. Let's say a couple of things about this brief scene. Abigail Williams write it this way. Abigail Williams begins to show her true colors. She will say, this is what we're going to say. And Betty will say, you drank blood. Which of course is, whoa, I mean that's way crossing the line. Abigail Williams will come back though, notice on page 1137, and say, now look you, all of you, we danced, and Tituba conjured Ruth Putnam's dead sisters, and that is all. And mark this, that means listen. Let either of you breathe a word or the edge of a word about the other things, and I will come to you in the black of some terrible night, and I will bring a pointy reckoning that will shudder you. In other words, I'll stab you to death while you're asleep if you ever tell. And you know I can do it. Then we find out why Abigail Williams is an orphan. I saw Indians smash my dear parents' heads on the pillow next to mine, and I have seen some reddish work done at night, and I can make you wish you had never seen the sun go down. Whoa! Write down in your notes what you want to say about Abigail. Wow. She's the kind of friend you hope you never have, who says, this is what we're going to say, and if you go against me, I will jack you up. And don't think that I can't do it. This, of course, makes us believe what Betty has already said, that she was drinking blood in the woods the night before. It also leads us to understand what kind of person she is. Very vindictive, very capable of the use of fear. Uh-oh, let's write that down. Threats only work if people are afraid. And they all know that, in fact, this is exactly what is going down. She's going to tell them what they're going to do. She's going to scare them. She's going to intimidate them. And it's going to work. Now, let's go ahead and say this out loud. This is a major motif of the play. When people want to gain either secrecy or a confession, they will often in this play use intimidation and threats. No question. It's going to happen repeatedly in our play. Into the room will walk John Proctor. Betty has just fainted again. Everyone is going to leave, leaving Abigail and John Proctor alone for the first time. Let's say two things about this. One, we have heard something about John Proctor's wife and Abigail, and some kind of slanted suggestion that maybe Abigail and John Proctor did something inappropriate. We have not yet met John Proctor. We'll meet him now. Read with me at the top of 1138. Proctor was a farmer in his middle 30s. I'm reading now at the top of 1138. He need not have been a partisan for any faction in the town, but there is evidence to suggest that he had a sharp and biting way with hypocrites. In other words, he did not like religious hypocrites, people who say one thing and then act another. He was the kind of man, powerful of body, even-tempered, and not easily led, who cannot refuse support to partisans without drawing their deepest resentment. In Proctor's presence, a fool felt his foolishness instantly, and a Proctor is always marked for calamity, therefore. So let's put it in our notes right away. This John Proctor will be our protagonist of the play. Write that down. John Proctor is our protagonist of the play. What is a protagonist? Well, according to Aristotle, our protagonist in his essay, Poetics, we mentioned it earlier. The protagonist is the character with whom the audience most identifies. Write that down. The protagonist, John Proctor, the character in the play with which the audience most identifies. All right? John Proctor is an interesting man. He has moral weakness. He slept with a young girl. He has moral convictions. He has said to his wife, I did it, but I'll never do it again. He also, however, has some moral questions, because as the play unfolds, he has it within his power to, in fact, say, this is all a joke. And I know, and here's why. Abigail Williams is about to tell him a little of what went on the night before. Let's keep reading. I'm on page 1138. But as we shall see, the steady manner Proctor displays does not spring from an untroubled soul. He is a sinner not only against the moral fashion of the time, but against his own vision of decent conduct. These people had no ritual for the washing away of sins. It's another trait we inherited from them, and it has helped to discipline us as well as to breed hypocrisy among us. Proctor, respected and even feared in Salem, has come to regard himself as a kind of fraud. But no hint of this has yet appeared on the surface, and as he enters from the crowded parlor below, it is a man in his prime we see, with a quiet confidence, an unexpressed hidden force. Mary Warren, his servant, can barely speak for embarrassment and fear, and she will be on her way out. And now we're going to have an exchange between Abigail Williams and John Proctor. Let's study the relationship between the two. Now, hey, can we say this out loud for your notes? This appears to be the first time that Proctor and Abigail have been together since Abigail was thrown out by John Proctor's wife on the grounds of sleeping together. Adultery is what it's called. All right? Okay, here we go. Let's pay attention now. Follow along.
You're deaf? I forbid you to leave the home, did I not?
I only come to see the great doors in the world.
I'll show you great jewel in your ass one of these days. I'll get you home. My wife is waiting with your work.
I'd best be off too. I have my Ruth to watch. Mrs. Putnam would want that. Good morning, Mr. Proctor.
God, I'd almost forgot how strong you are, John Proctor.
What is mischief here? The town's mumbling witchcraft.
Oh, bosh. We were dancing in the woods last night. My uncle leaped in on us. Betty took fright his arm.
Oh, you're wicked yet, aren't you? You'll be clapped in the stocks before you're 20.
You come 5 miles to see a silly girl fly. I know you better than that, John Proctor.
I come to see what mischief your uncle's brewing now.
Give me a word, John, a soft word.
No, Abby, that's done with. Put it out of mind.
John, I am waiting for you every night.
Abby, I never give you hope to wait for me.
I have something better than hope, I think.
Abby, you put it out of mind. I'll not be coming for you more.
You're surely sporting with me.
You know me better.
I know how you clutched my bag behind your house and sweated like a stallion whenever I come near. Or did I dream that? It's she put me out. You cannot pretend it were you. I saw your face when she put me out. And you loved me then, and you do now.
Abby, that's a wild thing to say.
A wild thing may say wild things. But not so wild, I think. I have seen you since she put me out. I have seen your nights.
I have hardly stepped off my farm this 7 months.
I have a sense for heat, John. And yours has drawn me to my window. And I've seen you looking up, burning in your loneliness. Do you tell me you've never looked up at my window?
I may have looked up.
And you must. You are no wintry man. I know you, John. I know you. I cannot sleep for dreaming. I cannot dream, but I wake and walk about the house as though I'd find you coming through some door.
Child.
Oh, you call me child.
Abby. Abby, I may think of you softly from time to time, but I will cut off my hand before I'll ever reach for you again. Wipe it out of mind. We never touched Abby.
But we did.
But we did not.
No.
Watch this.
Such a strong man may let such a sickly wife
You
be.
speak nothing of Elizabeth.
She is blackening my name in the village. She is telling lies about me. She is a cold, sniveling woman, and you bent her. Let her turn
Do you
my
look for whipping? Huh?
I look for John Proctor. That took me from my sleep and put knowledge in my heart. I never knew what pretense Salem was. I never knew the lying lessons I was taught by all these Christian women and their covenanted men. And now you bid me tear the light out of my eyes. I will not. I cannot. You loved me, John Proctor, and whatever sin it is, you love me yet. John, pity me. Pity me.
Going up to Jesus.
Now, let's pause for a moment and take a few notes on this scene. It is a compelling scene. And of course, it's the first major conflictive scene in the play. So let's write this down. It's the first moment when we see true conflict right on stage. I mean, we've heard some conflict, that's going on between Paris and the group or whatever. But here, right now, in front of us, we see Abigail Williams and we see John Proctor. Now, a couple of things that are interesting. First of all, notice the genius of Miller and how he sets this up. He gives us Abigail Williams, and she shows us just how vicious she can be. In other words, if you say anything, if you narc on me, I will come at night while you're sleeping and I will drive a dagger through your heart. I will stab you to death. Don't think I can't do it. Whoa! All the girls are kind of like, okay. Then all of a sudden, John Proctor comes in, and Abigail turns. Did you notice this? She turns. She's a different kind of person. Now all of a sudden she's in the presence of her lover. This is John Proctor. So the audience will meet John Proctor for the very first time with Abigail Williams. But we get a sense that John Proctor is a little bit confused. Jot down in your notes why. He's a little bit confused as to how to behave. Why? Why? Can you jot down why? And this will say something profound about John Proctor's character right away. Notice, on the one hand, he's a strong man. I'm going to whip you if you don't behave appropriately to Mary Warren, and then later even to Abigail Williams. But on the other hand, he has a clear vulnerability. That vulnerability, of course, is that he had a relationship with Abigail Williams. Did you notice how Abigail Williams is able to exploit this? So it shows us that Abigail is genius in manipulating people's emotions. She can manipulate with fear, or she can manipulate with something much different. Notice how she says it to John. I've been hoping that I could see you. And then she says it. You've been at my window, haven't you? You've been at my window looking up to see if you could see me, haven't you? His response is, yeah, I may have. Bam, she's got him, right? She's got him right where she wants him. She wants him, of course, to leave his wife and to become her guy. Of course, John Proctor will say it. I will never do that. I never touched you. To which Abigail Williams says, but you did. Notice Proctor will say it. No, we didn't. Of course, the audience knows what. Yeah, they did. So why would John Proctor say I never did it? What does this tell us about John Proctor? Let's put it in our notes simply as this. He's very concerned about his reputation in the town, right? Now, of course, once Abigail Williams realizes this, she knows she's got him. Because she knows that no matter what she confides to him, he's not going to tell. Because for him to tell would mean he'd have to admit he slept with this girl. And that would ruin his reputation in town. Now, of course, let's write down the word reputation. Let's circle it. Let's put stars around it. Because that's going to be one of the central themes of the play at the end of the play. At the end of the play. And we'll pay attention to the way in which the word reputation becomes a central part of how we will read and study this play by the end of the play. Because here's the deal. As we look at John Proctor, he is the protagonist. And Aristotle said we identify with the protagonist. We're going to ask this question. How do you identify with Proctor? Do you feel at all for him? He made a mistake. He wants to somehow still protect his marriage. We're going to find out he has sons. He doesn't want to ruin his reputation in town. But at the same time, he still has feelings for Abigail Williams. Notice she points it out that he is lonely. Right? She's going to say it. You're lonely, aren't you? You want to be with me. Notice what he says. It's a violent image. He says it. I would cut my hand off before I would ever reach out again to touch you. She, of course, can't believe it, and so she's going to respond in kind, all right? And her response will be, it's all about that sniveling woman of yours. And then notice the genius of this character of Abigail. Now, let's say it out loud. Winona Ryder will play in the performance that we will study with Daniel Day-Lewis. And most of my juniors have a real hard time with Winona Ryder. They basically will say out loud, ooh, I hate this girl's guts. But wait a minute. Miller has created an interesting character in Abigail Williams. Let's just outline it. One, she's orphaned because her parents are killed by Indians. 2. She's raised by Paris, who's not a very nice guy, the Reverend. 3. She goes to work for the Proctors as a young girl, and John Proctor sleeps with her. Then she's thrown out of the house by John Proctor's wife. And now she's living in town, and people are beginning to talk behind her back. But John Proctor has said nothing about what went down. But you notice that she says it. My getting fired from your house wasn't about you, was it? It was about your wife, wasn't it? And then notice she starts in on Elizabeth and again calls her sniveling. Now this word sniveling has multiple meanings, right? But what it can mostly mean is she's not a very nice person. She's kind of mean. And she is, you get the sense here, she says it, she's controlling you, isn't she? Well, now, note the irony of this, right? Because, of course, what is Abigail trying to do right now? Control him, right? That is to say, she's trying to use his emotions against him, which is the very thing that she accuses Elizabeth of doing. By the way, let's just jump in our notes to 3a really quickly, and relationship to other titles. We cannot help but reference Macbeth, Shakespeare's Macbeth, and more particularly Lady Macbeth, when we meet her for the first time in Act 1 of that play. You will study that play with me as a senior, but I'm only laying it into your brain now just to say someday we're going to meet this woman, Lady Macbeth, who is incredibly acute at how to manipulate her man using certain kinds of suggestions like, you're not a real man, are you? Notice that's exactly what we got going on here with Abigail Williams. She's in fact going to say it out loud. Notice she begins by talking about, I'd forgotten how strong a man you were. Wow, you're hot. Wow, you're strong. But then later she'll say, wow, you're a real wimp. You let your wife tell you what to do. What's up with that? Whoa, Abigail Williams is brilliant at being able to try to control other people's emotions. Well, all right, we'll take a break and we'll come back to continue our study of Act 1. Thank you.